There's a story you've been hearing a little bit about this morning and also in the last week, and it's the Carry On and EastEnders actress Barbara Windsor. She's been speaking out in support of people with dementia this week. She and her husband Scott Mitchell are urging Boris Johnson to improve social care.
The people I have met have shared with me that regretfully our care system is letting them down. I've heard so many stories about how hard it is for families to get good quality care, and indeed any social care at all. Barbara and I want to lend our voices to fixing dementia care for everyone.
Unite with me against dementia.
It's nice to hear her voice, isn't it? It's been a long time since we heard from Dame Barbara Windsor. So that was the message to the Prime Minister. And as you know, Dame Barbara was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, the most common form of dementia, back in 2014. She said her heart goes out to the many, many people really struggling to get the care they so desperately need. Now, that's something that Nikola Voce knows only too well. Her husband was diagnosed with dementia when he was 53. Nicola attends St Andrew's in Nottingham and a few years ago helped to gain recognition for them as a dementia-friendly church. Good morning, Nicola.
Morning.
53 is a young age to be diagnosed with dementia.
Yes, although as you'll have heard in lots of news stories recently, it's by no means the youngest. It is becoming more well known that there are younger people with it now.
And when did you first have an idea that something maybe wasn't right?
He was struggling with his job. He struggled to just do simple tasks, and at home even just doing daft things. It wasn't so much that he would forget things, although he did, obviously, but it was more the strange things he did, like buttering toast with a spoon and putting his watch on upside down. And he couldn't recognise coin values, for example, so he'd just hold his hand out in a shop for the shop assistant to take the right money.
So quite small things to start with, but something where you went, hold on, clearly something's wrong.
Yeah, it was very much not just about forgetting things, but just strange behaviours, because it's not the sort of thing you do however tired you are or whatever. You would always know that you need a knife for butter or jam or whatever.
And then that progressed. So how did you cope with the progression of his dementia?
Well, his was quite slow. I mean, he passed away last year, so it was a 13-year journey for us both. And yeah, it was just gradually, month by month, year by year, you would notice a decline. But there was nothing marked. You just sort of adapted sort of quite easily in a way to each step along the way and just got what you needed in place.
And when you say getting what you needed in place, what sort of things were those? Because those must have changed as things went on as well. So what sort of things did you need to do? Yeah,
well, when he was first diagnosed, we just didn't know what to do or what would happen or where to turn. So we sort of had the first 4 years with no help or anything whatsoever. But when he did start having increased needs, we were given a CPN, community psychiatric nurse, and she was great, and she could signpost us and help us know what was coming ahead. So she helped us get care, to take him to an art group that he'd been enjoying since he had to give up work, and to go to a singing group, which were both extremely important parts of his life in his new way of life. So that was some things in the community. Medical stuff. We had very few medical appointments, so you felt very alone in the world with it. You sort of, I was researching it. I know, with me being younger as well, I'd got the internet to hand. Not everybody has, but I would research what his particular dementia was like and just try and find the best care for him at each stage, whether that was getting carers in to help us, or eventually, he did have to move into a care home.
So there was some support there. Was there enough support, do you think?
No way. Absolutely not. When you consider, say, if you take another illness, cancer or whatever, it's very common. But dementia is also very common, but there is by no means the same level of care options to help you at any stage, really, all along the way. Just very lacking.
And in going through that yourself, what helped you to deal with it? What helped you to deal with, seeing this happen to your husband?
I'm thankfully quite a pragmatic person, so I try not to let myself get too emotional about it. I found actually that when he passed away, I was able to sort of release all those things that I actually just couldn't afford to think about before. Just have to get on with what the needs are. My faith did help me in that I've got a couple of things that help me get through life. One of them is an old Garfield phrase. I can't say it verbatim, but it essentially it's stuff happens. So it's all about acceptance. And
we know what you mean.
Yeah. And the other one is the Serenity Prayer, which basically talks about accepting things you can't change, courage to change the things you can, and crucially, wisdom to know the difference. So I would just think, right, can I help what's happening to him? No. What can I do to help him? Find it. And just not over worry if at all possible. Obviously, I had my down times and upset times and things, but I just saw them as part and parcel and just got on with it.
Does having all of that going on as well, because you are thinking about the practicalities, is that a helpful thing, or do you think it's a hindrance? Because you've got all of the emotional feelings that you're obviously going to have, but at the same time you're thinking, well, I need to sort out this care, I need to do this. Does that help, or is it a problem?
I found it helpful because actually one of the worst things is if you feel helpless. I mean, when I used to have to walk away from him, having to leave him at home, at least when he was living with me at home, I was with him all the time, so I could cater to his every need, hopefully. But when I used to have to walk away, it was literally, I don't want to leave him, but there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't live there with him, it was sort of, you just literally have to deal with it or not.
And we talked a little bit about getting recognition as a dementia-friendly church. What sort of things do you have to do to be dementia-friendly as a church?
Well, essentially, really, I've just found that we just nearly need to be sympathetic to really anyone who comes through the doors. It doesn't just have to be dementia. But in terms of this, we've put some special signage up for the toilet so that there's a picture of a toilet, not just a word, in case people struggle with reading, as Steve did. We also hold dementia information sessions, usually about once a year now, but it was more often in the beginning to try and get all our church members more informed about the illness and the issues that might arise from that and how it could affect them in church and others. And we just want to cater for everyone.
Nikola Voce, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate you coming in. We're talking about Dame Barbara Windsor, who's been calling for more support for people with dementia and their carers and families.